Well, so like we do it always, I'm not here alone. I'm here with my co-presenter,
Rosemary Balami.
Yes, Rosemary Balami is from the Center for Transformation. Yes, okay. All right, so Rosemary, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
I'm good. What about you?
I'm very well, thank
Fantastic.
you. So this is the SDG-Hub, where every Tuesday we discuss opportunities and solutions for everyday business to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, as we call them for short. Now, I'm your host, Emmanuel Aboagye-Wiafe, and together with Rosemary, we'll be talking to our guests tonight on this particular topic, gender equality. Gender equality is a fundamental human right which has been recognized and championed by various international organizations, including the United Nations, and also has the Goal 5 spot of the Sustainable Development Goals: achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Among sub-Saharan African countries, Ghana is said to be a leader when it comes to seeking gender equality through the advancement of women's rights in recent years, from the Gender Ministry to civil society organizations working together to addressing gender inequalities which affect women and girls in various disciplines such as education, health, employment, public participation, and others. But looking at the current scope of the Ghanaian society, have we made significant progress with the issue of gender equality?
That's a food for thought right there, Emmanuel. With only 7 years left to achieve the SDGs, it is necessary to assess gender equality, especially in the Ghanaian context. How do we as a country overcome barriers to women's empowerment and participation in all aspects of society, including politics, education, health, and the economy, as well as challenging harmful traditions and practices that perpetuate gender inequality like child marriage, female genital mutilation, and discrimination against women in the workplace? Talk of politics and leadership. According to UNDP Ghana, women constitute about 51% of the total population in Ghana, but since independence, the country has witnessed low participation from women in leading positions. For example, only 40 members of parliament out of 275 are women. This makes about 15%. Out of 86 current ministerial positions, only 18 are appointed as women, representing about 21%. And out of the 261 metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives, only 38 are women. Clearly, a lot needs to be done. Well, let's hear from the public what the public has to say about gender equality in Ghana.
Gender equality in our country, I oftentimes think about it. Is there a way that this thing can be eradicated or can be reduced in our society? But I feel like that is going to be a long journey to trying to equalize the genders, because the gender inequalities we have are entrenched in our society. It's something we grew up with. We are socialized to accept the kind of roles placed on us or the kind of stereotypes that are put on us. And so, for example, sometimes you feel neglected, you are going through emotional stress. So which means a man does not cry, or a man is not supposed to cry, which is presupposing that a man is supposed to be stoic, and not show emotions and just be hardened. And in actual fact, it's a sign of virility and manliness. And so these are some of the things we go through. Another challenge I find is that it's difficult in our society drawing a thin line between being cocky or confident or self-conceited and being confident and assertive. I feel like oftentimes people mistake being confident and assertive for being self-conceited, or as we know it, too known in our society. And of course, this one in particular is not just restricted to the cases of the genders. Of course, we do it across board, but it's okay for a man to do that. It's okay for a man to be seen as confident and assertive, but it's a challenge when a woman is being confident and assertive. Then she's tagged as being arrogant and pompous and all manner of things. And I think it's a challenge. And so, in order to cure this thing of gender inequality, it should start with our society. But I think it's going to be a long journey from now. When we begin to change our perspectives or the way we are being socialized in our society, and we begin to empower, I think, our women, we begin to empower them to also reach out for opportunities and try to grab them, try to break the glass ceilings in wherever they find themselves. I think it's a gradual step, but it's achievable with time.
With regards to gender inequality, there's always the connotation and preconception that men are always in lead. So men are always dominant and women are expected to be accommodating and emotional. They are always expected to be subordinate with regards to men. So men are always leading. And in this part of the world, you see majority of the men taking up the leadership positions, whereas women who are even more a lot in some institutions, tertiary institutions and in workplaces, are rather subordinating over the men. And so gender inequality is on a high increase in our part of the world. And people are unable to speak up due to the stereotypes and the prejudice they have against.
And those were varied opinions about gender equality right here in Ghana. Yes, Rosemary, we are pleased to be joined in the studio tonight by seasoned guests who have worked in the gender space to explore the scope of gender equality in the country and how we as a nation can make tremendous progress. My guests and our guest tonight, Amtu Akumfi-Ameyaw, youth and gender activist, and Alice Yakubu, founder of Alice Talk World GH and also a gender advocate. Good evening, ladies, and welcome.
Good evening.
We're privileged to be having all ladies.
Oh, yeah.
Affair
I'm
right
very
here.
happy here to discuss something that's
now I'm the only male, so I'm left out.
Yeah, lucky.
Okay, I'm lucky
It's
though.
balanced, though.
Well, not so much balanced, but at least I'll do it. Welcome, ladies, and can you tell us briefly about yourself and what you do?
Okay.
Let's start with you.
So my name is Amtu Akumfi-Ameyaw. I have a longer government name. Let me not bore you with that this night. So I studied political science and French at the University of Ghana, and should I say I've been doing gender since 2018. I currently work at the UNFPA. I work as a youth leaders fellow, and as you already know, UNFPA is the agency responsible for population and anything else gender. So all the things about child marriage, labor, teenage pregnancy, all of that's all under UNFPA.
Okay.
So that's what we do at UNFPA, and I'm glad that I've been given the opportunity, not just because I still work in the space, but because I have worked in the space over the time to be discussing this.
Right. Good to have you again. Let's come to you, Alice. What do you do?
I'm Alice Yakubu from University of Ghana. I am a student from University of Ghana, reading BSc IT, and I am a gender advocate, a student leader, and the founder of Alice Talk World. So with Alice Talk World, we largely focus on women empowerment, entrepreneurship, leadership, and public speaking. So as a student, that is what I engage myself with the team, and yeah, that's
All right. That's impressive of you, ladies, to know that you're doing something positive with yourselves in the area of gender. Let's start the discussion now. First of all, when we talk about gender equality, what exactly do we mean and how important is it, Amtu?
So I believe I would answer from the bottom. I think gender equality is extremely important, and in my opinion, gender equality is sort of putting every single gender we can speak about at par. So that's the reason why it's important. And I think the conversation is always centered or looking at, whenever we say gender, is always kind of women, because women have been disadvantaged for a very long time. So that's why whenever the conversation is about gender,
it's skewed towards women.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, some men.
So
also,
you know how before we began, she was saying, "Oh, this is like a balanced panel," and for you immediately said no. So that's how we've been feeling over the years, to have 4 or 3 men and just one woman. So that's instantly. I don't know if you can immediately relate to what gender equality is and how important it feels, not just because of discussion and policy-wise, but even within you. It makes you feel very uncomfortable when you go to a place where you really can't see someone like you. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone in the same race, but the fact that you can identify with someone.
Do you consider it as a cultural thing? Because I don't know whether it's also same elsewhere apart from Africa.
So from the establishment of UN women have been fighting for gender equality in various things. So First, it started with activists fighting for the rights to vote, rights to own property, and things. So across the world, people have different kind of things.
I think even dates way back to the Beijing conference.
Yes.
So
that people fight for different kind of things, but then it's important to note that even though it's very contextual, because maybe people in the Americas are not fighting for ending child marriage, but they may be fighting for other things that are very important to them. So currently we see that a lot of girls are being kidnapped, killed, and things like that. So they are fighting for different kind of things. But then the overhead subject is gender equality.
Right.
Coming down to Ghana, I think I won't generally say it's cultural. Yes, we have some parts of it that are very cultural, that doesn't really matter the kind of education or enlightenment that someone has. They may still want to stick to their stereotypical ways of thinking about why it's important to have gender equality. But there are also certain things about the culture. Should I say, we watched Woman King recently, and this was a traditional African space where there were women armies. Even in Ghana, we had Yasantua. Even when the male chiefs and kings were not ready to fight, she was ready to fight. So there are certain parts of the culture we have been made to believe that has been erased. Even if it's not there, I think it's very possible. Inherently, even I would go back to our traditional society. So before a king is chosen or a chief is chosen, there's an ohema who is believed to have all the wisdom that it's necessary to be able to appoint that person. So there are some parts of the culture that still recognizes the importance of giving women the opportunity and putting them at par to be able to be part of the decision making. But then there are also some parts of it that are inhumane, like some of the rites of passages that we see and stuff like that.
Let me also go to Alice. Now, Alice, there's yet another term that has become household these days: gender equity. Can you explain the difference between equality and equity, gender equality and gender equity?
So with gender equality, I feel it's actually for both sex. That should have advantage over everything. With the gender equity, people do feel that, we basically have to, things has to be implemented and things has to actually be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, let me come back with a follow-up question. Now, although Ghana has some brilliant women in leading positions, we heard in the introduction that the participation of women in the decision-making process is still low. Now, in your experience, and this is going to you again, Alice, is there equal access to education and job opportunities for both men and women in Ghana?
To me, I would say my personal experience, I would say where I'm coming from, I'm actually coming from Northeast and all that. Okay. So I would say we have actual, it's a yes and a no to this. When you look at government, they've actually implemented a lot of policies trying their possible best to give us access towards education and equality and all that. But then I would also say the cultural norms and all that is being part of the whole thing, and also our mindset as well. Job opportunities have been secured. They've implemented a whole lot of things that we have to, work on it to be able to access jobs. But people still put up their minds that even if, especially with the female's gender, we feel that a lot of jobs out there is male dominated. Men are given access to jobs and all that. So even if I put up an effort, will I be able to get equal pay as compared to how men are being able to secure? That's my view.
Okay. Now, what are some of the popular challenges women face when it comes to assessing opportunities? Amtu.
Okay, so just because you are asking of challenges, I'll just highlight again what equity is. So equity is a means to attaining equality. So there's a very popular image that shows different people standing on different levels of blocks to watch a soccer match. So there's a baby who has a lot of blocks to be able to access the soccer match. Then there's someone who didn't even have any block at all. Then there's someone who had, should I say, a little in between.
Okay.
So then equity is a means to equality. I don't know if you get from the basis of that explanation, because then equity is saying that all of you have to be able to watch this match, but we are going to provide you with the things that we believe you desire or require to be able to access it.
Okay.
So when there's
at
equity,
par.
there's equality.
Exactly. So equity is a means to attaining equality. Also, some of the challenges that exist, like she rightly said, is mindsets. Some of them, for example, in the space of leadership, is extremely expensive to run a campaign for even student elections. It's extremely expensive. It's not a kind place to women as well. Women who want to contest. So, for example, men may be allowed or permitted to be campaigning at late hours at about 11 p.m., 12 a.m., and all of that. But for women, some people wouldn't be willing to listen to you at that time of the day. Also, you have restrictions, like if you have a partner, why are you out at this time? You are campaigning to people. There's like a lot of trust issues. So it's really not, some of the challenges sometimes can be held back, but you really can't do anything about it, because trust issues with your partner, you can't stop someone from having trust issues. Right. And all of these things are challenges. I don't usually will say funding, but
in what sense?
Exactly. So if it's entrepreneurship, if it's tech, we know there are so many funds accessible to women now in such spaces. But accessibility is one of the things. Women hardly even don't get the information. So they don't access the information to even know that this is what the funding is. And when they have the information, some of them have to toil, people have to...
So on the issue of the challenges, for instance, what are some of these popular misconceptions or stereotypes about gender roles in Ghana that you think needs to be, challenged?
So gender roles, because I came out of school not too long ago, I'll just use, for example, students' positions. Women's commissioners are for women. That's no problem, because a lot of the times you have so many other people running for positions and you end up not having women as part of it. Some people will say it's tokenism, but then there's still representation. That's all that matters, I believe. One of the challenges there is when you get there, people don't expect much from you. They expect you to be sharing food. I'm sure people are tired of me saying this, but one of the reasons why I ran for Women's Commissioner, USAG Women's Commissioner, 2 years ago, was because I felt there was so much to be able to do with the position. I don't go around the country campaign like the boys campaign and become the sharer of food when that's not part of my job description. I'm not saying I'm not going to do it, but don't think because it's a women's position, I am directly assigned to doing that. No, please, I'm not assigned to doing that.
So you made mention of something very, very important, okay? So in the issue of student leadership, for instance, there are some particular positions that you don't even get the women vying for.
Exactly.
You vie for women's commissioner. Looking at you right now, you're capable. Why didn't you go for the main...
So, once again, like I highlighted when I was speaking, I ran for Women's Commissioner because I felt that the position was underutilized. Okay. So I believed that I had to start from somewhere. So at the time, not to say my predecessors weren't doing anything, but a lot of the times, even when they wanted to do something, the system was put up in a way where they were unable to do anything. So people come for meetings and senates and they expect you to share food. They don't expect you to be sitting at the NEC meeting. They are not expecting you to be contributing. They are not expecting you to be writing. But then they are expecting you to just sit down and wait until it's break and you share food. And I felt that wasn't something...
Women's commission position.
Exactly. So that was the reason why I ran for position. But I mean, anyone who knows me knows I'm very big on anyone that's running for a female
But nationwide, why don't we have more like girls, females running for these main presidents, financial secretary?
Yes, I get that. I think now we run for financial secretary. We run
because
for
you keep the money well, is assumed.
Exactly. We actually do. It's not assumption. We actually do. And we run for that. We run for secretary. Yeah. We are doing very well. So once again, the funding, and it's not a kind place. Okay. Because, for example, mainstream politics, right? We can bear witness to the kinds of insults that women have to go through just because they are running for political office.
Wow.
If she's running for political office and she's good at it, she's disrespectful, she's arrogant. That's because she's outspoken, and she's sleeping with so many men, and she's a prostitute, and even her child doesn't have.
So those are some of the things they say
and
about women.
it even comes down to main student leadership and stuff like that. So if I want to, for example, become an MP of my constituency, and there's a current member of parliament who is a woman, and I hear everybody saying every time that she's a prostitute, I may be tough, but my family may not be tough or prepared to be hearing such things. So even when you are determined, you have people tell you, oh, you know what, I think you shouldn't do this. It's okay, like you can just support from the background. We are not saying people who support from the background, that's not it, but some people may do better taking the lead, like being at the forefront and doing impactful things.
Fantastic. So now let's move on. SDG Target 5.1 says end all forms of discrimination against all women and girls everywhere. Alice, looking at Ghana's context, what is the case on the ground and what can we do to improve the situation?
So, you see, when we look at the Ghana's context, I always say discrimination is, we don't have to actually look at the space of only women. Men are equally discriminated.
Oh, okay.
You know, they make up their mind to do things or they keep pushing and people are discriminated. So we all battle with same issues and all that. So, for instance, I would say with discrimination, I would say the men, for instance, should set as role models, help pushing the agenda of females. You know, I started with an NGO when I was about to run an NGO on campus. You know, a lot of discrimination, people like, you can't do it, you can't do that. But I'm speaking,
you're female.
Exactly, they were like, you are female, you wouldn't have the strength, people would discriminate, people would say a whole lot of things, where is your source of funding, how are you able to push all this, how are you able to go by it? But as I'm speaking with you, men are actually pushing up. My team is surrounded by men and we are actually doing it. So men should always come up to set as role models for other people to also look up to them. And then again, we should also have a way out to educate people. Always educate people that this is not, if they make up their mind to do something, there should be empowered. People should be able to encourage them to keep doing it.
So now let's look at the challenges, okay?
Okay.
Girls in rural areas and girls in urban areas. What are some of the challenges that they have? What's the difference between these two, disparities? What do they face in terms of challenges?
With the challenges, looking at, let's say, someone from, when you see a lot of people who do the kayayo in Accra, they are coming from my place. That's the northeast. I always want to emphasize on that. See, when they come to Accra, people are like, oh, kayayo, it's not actually a work. Maybe you might be coming from a good foundation, you might be having a good background and all that. Why do you have to discriminate them? It's actually, I would say the kayayo is also a way of making money. So why not encourage them, educate them that, be a support system to them, tell them that this is what they can do and they should keep doing it and they would actually make money out of it.
Absolutely. Exactly. So now let me come to you, Amtu. Let me come back to you.
Yeah.
SDG Target 5.3 also, talks about eliminating, you made mention about you and FPA working with, in, areas like this. Talks about eliminating all harmful practices such as child, early and forced marriage and female genital mutilation. We know that traditions and customs play a role in shaping societies. Are there any traditional customs or practices in Ghana that you believe hinder gender equality?
Child marriage, FGM, some of the rites of passage processes. I think that's how it's properly called. I won't remember the actual names, but so for example, when people experience their menarche in some parts of Ghana, they are made to go through some ceremonies, and these ceremonies, instead of supposedly giving them dignifying them, in turn are very inhumane. So why do I have to show nudity because I'm supposedly trying to chase some dignity of society? Such things. There are practices that shouldn't be going on. So
what do you think are some of the sustainable solutions to practices like that? And you and FPA also works in this.
Yes. I'm not assigned. I do not have the right to speak on behalf of my organization. But what I can say is governments, with the support of UN agencies, NGOs are doing so much to make sure that this ends. So, for example, FGM, what we see is a lot of the people from areas where there's FGM, a lot of these same people go to child marriage, which means they also fall under the brackets of adolescents, pregnancies, and all of. So there's this kind of snowball effect around all of these harmful practices, and efforts are being made. Efforts are a lot of investments.
What are some of these efforts?
So education, I think a lot of education is being made, and some investments in giving them some sources of livelihood, because some of them are able to run away. The education parts, not just giving them information about what exists, that this situation is not the best, educating the communities and all of that, but also giving them formal education, because research has also proven that the more people access formal education, the less vulnerable they become to these things. So, I think those are some of the interventions that have been.
The conversation is very interesting, but unfortunately, our time is running very fast. But I'm coming to you. How can the Ghanaian society and maybe us as individuals promote gender equality and women's empowerment?
I think as individuals, we just have to be very conscious. We have to be prepared to unlearn and relearn. We have to recognize gender mainstreaming as an effort that can be integrated at any part of our lives. So, for example, in your home, don't say to your male child, Bemansu. It's very okay for a guy to cry. Please don't go and tell them Bemansu. And that's how they'll get broken hearts, and then they won't be able to cry and they'll commit suicide. Please don't say that to your male children at home. Don't do like specific designated roles that it's only the girl that should wash her plates. It's fine if she's doing it with her brother. So what if the boys end up in a place where they are never going to be women?
Right. In 30 seconds, what do you think are some changes that you hope to see in future, Alice?
Okay, so the different changes I'm hoping to see in the future is the problems we are encountering, the challenges and all that. I mean, we ladies, I keep talking about the mindset. I believe that with the education and other things that we would have to go through, we should be able to maneuver our way out to pick up roles that are male dominated, that we feel people wouldn't be able to do it.
Absolutely. Exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today to share your expertise and valuable insight. It has been an enlightening discussion. Make sure to tune in same time next week as we continue all discussions on sustainable development right here on Asaase Radio 99.5, so that people and the planet can prosper. If you have any topics you would like us to discuss, shoot an email to info@cestint.org or send a message to our social media platforms at Wayari Ghana. Also, don't forget to vote for my co-host Emmanuel Aboagye-Wiafe for the Energy Media Personality of the Year Award to short code *920*86#. Enter nomination code TE5 for the Think Energy SDGs Awards 2023.
And thank you so much for staying with us on the SDG-Hub tonight. We have been speaking with Amtu Akumfi-Ameyaw, youth and gender activist, and Alice Yakubu, founder of Alice Talk World GH and also gender advocate. My name is Emmanuel Aboagye-Wiafe, and I did this with
Rosemary Balami.
We go back to B-Tunes.